Activate.
All right, everybody. I know this looks weird, but we have changed rooms on you.
There's a sound effect.
Yeah, right. We are actually still at Hello Studios, but just in another room. And I'm loving it. It's the Oprah room.
Yeah, man.
Right? Anyway, we are a show called This Pink Cloud, and we are a show that is about multiple pathways to recovery as well as mental health. Right? And speaking of mental health, ladies and gentlemen.
What's your name?
Oh, yeah, I'm Kelly Reverb. Chat's just doing the manual.
Yeah, I'm just manual sound effects today.
Right? I love it. Yes. But speaking of mental health, everybody, give it up for Chad Lamons.
Hey, woo!
Ow!
Yeah, blurry photo.
Dude, well, no, thanks for setting this up on the fly, dude. Yeah. Seriously, you know, we just, you never know.
Kelly, you're welcome.
Yeah. Hey,
brother.
Thanks, Chad.
At the end of the night,
hey,
whenever you lay your little head down, I just want you to know how welcome you truly are.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
Hey, Chad, when you're biting your pillow at night. Anyway, before this gets too locker room here, my good buddy here sitting next to me, Al Vaughn, dude.
Come on now.
What is up, brother? Woo. Dude, so you and I go back to like at least the 90s, right?
At least the 90s.
Maybe late 80s. Possibly. Mix Bar definitely was a big part of it.
Big time.
And then you've actually been clean and sober for 12 years, right?
12 years. So
there
exciting.
We go, dude. That's
awesome.
That is awesome,
Thank
dude.
You guys.
Thank
you.
What prompted that for you, man?
Well, you know, my background in the entertainment business, I was just kind of a working addict.
Right. It was part of the job.
It was part of the job.
Kind of like DJing. It's part of the job.
Exactly. So I DJed.
It's in the job description.
Right.
Right.
Right. Never knew what day it was, but that was okay.
Yeah. Right.
So, yeah, just very blessed to make it through that and have the, 20-some years of that craziness and, where... it was craziness.
Right.
It was craziness.
For sure.
Real good time selling records and getting out promoting things and the record labels and record release parties and the bands and,
There was lots of good times had, but then at some point the good times will catch up with you.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened.
Right.
My wife ended up coming up pregnant and it was a really coming to Jesus moment where either I could do it the right way or I could kind of skip ass and keep doing what I was doing, which really wasn't working anyway.
Sure.
So it was a kind of easy transition for me. I had good advisors and good people I was working with and Preston Group and that. I was part of that for a while.
Oh, Preston Group. Cool.
Yeah, been
nice.
There. Yep. Awesome.
So,
nice.
So I'm just trying to give back a little bit and,
Yeah. Well, now you're doing working on stuff like for retreats, and medicinal retreats as well as spiritual retreats, and all that kind of stuff, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And I was going to talk about that a little later.
Yeah, but I want to, the guest of the hour, and I'm super excited to have this young lady on.
You've been trying for how long now? Months and months.
Well, yeah, she's a busy lady. She's traveling around and speaking and stuff.
Yeah.
But I want to give it up for she, and I'm gonna let her. I'm just gonna go tribal elder, international speaker. But then you can give us the list. But everybody, give it up for Grandma Shirley.
Woo! All right. We got her on tape. Come on.
Yeah. So I am so happy that you can make it here with us, because every time I like hear you, I would start to talk. I'm like, man, I'm really into this. Now we can really get into it, and I can absorb all of your, hopefully a portion of your knowledge. But yeah, please give the audience a little bit of the resume. And if you will, the
10 pages,
the truncated version of the resume.
Basically, I'm a weird duck.
Okay.
And that's spelled WYRD. And I've got a multicultural framework that I operate out of.
Okay.
And that has to do with indigenous world, and that has to do with the everyday world.
Addictions.
Here's the deal.
Yeah.
Every single person is addicted to something.
Right.
The question is what? You know, one of the things you learn in medicine, and I walked away from Western medicine. You need to know that.
Okay.
I don't work in hospitals. I won't work in them.
Sure.
Because I have too much knowledge about alternative medical
And
practices.
plant medicine.
Not just plant medicines,
Right.
but we're talking about how you deal with people, what different cultures do, how they do it, what the patterns are, what the ancients said, what the prophecies are. It just goes on and on and on. If you're somebody who's into that kind of stuff, and I am.
Right.
And part of the reason was that for the first 40 years of my life, we couldn't tell anybody who we were.
Right. You had to hide. Right.
We were hidden
Yeah.
big time. And what that means is we weren't allowed to speak a word of another language except English. Because they might find out that we could speak something else.
Right.
And it wasn't even about Spanish or German or any of that.
Did
My
you,
mother-
was your family concerned about like presenting as Caucasian or what?
No.
No?
And yes.
Okay.
Because we looked white,
Sure. Right.
but we weren't.
Right.
In my family, for the last at least 19 or more generations, 200 years,
Right.
every generation there was one who carried a prophecy. My dad really, I think, thought it was going to be one of my brothers, but it wasn't. It was me.
Okay.
Those prophecies came in when you were 3,
Okay.
and they came in by way of a dream. When I was 3, a lot of things happened during that time. And to deal with the reality of what it means to become a person on this planet, you have to look at a number of factors. What led up to it? What is
Okay.
your lineage? What are the patterns of the lineage? What is it that you're here to do? What's your purpose and your meaning?
God, I would love to know that.
And what are the patterns of the framework of the structure that your soul has put in place for you to live in order to, when the time comes for you to take it on, interface with it, heal it, and move forward and pass it on.
Right.
And I grew up in that kind of a system. Now, prior to that happening, something happened in my family. I was 3, Ronnie was 2, Ray Charles was 6 weeks old.
Okay.
This particular, and I took care of the boys. We had some acreage, we had a garden, we had all kinds of stuff and animals. This particular day, Ray Charles was screaming his guts out, and I knew how to call my dad at work. And I couldn't get him to stop crying. So I couldn't find Mama. So I called Daddy. He comes home.
Right.
He attacks Mama because she wasn't there.
Right.
Now, there's a history to all of that, but
Sure.
she's infuriated. And there are a number of reasons for that.
Right.
But she comes to find me. I already figured out that I'm in trouble.
Right.
So I hid. She found me. She beat the living hell out of me. She jerked me around. She threw me against the wall. She took me to the head of the stairs and was back and forthing
Right.
like this. I was 3 years old.
Sure.
And she was screaming at me that I had no right to life.
Right.
Now, there are a lot of reasons for that. And I can tell you that for me, you have no right, no business being even alive. You are so evil. Everything you touch will be destroyed. You are vicious. You are a failure. You do not even deserve to breathe air. You should not have been born. And I heard that from birth.
Right.
And before I was going to be given away.
Right.
My dad shows up and they got married because my parents were soulmates. There's no doubt about it. And he had a history of women who wouldn't have kids for him or cheated on him. So he assumed that she was cheating on him when it wasn't true. She was out in the garden picking up plants
Right.
and stuff. I split off because she threw me down those stairs.
Right.
I was basically vacant for 30 years. It was in my 30s that, by that time, I had been doing a lot of studying and stuff. It's not like I
Right.
didn't have a good head.
Sure. I have a question. So you were saying that you got the prophecy at 3. So
Yeah, so after that happened, I woke up one night screaming. Daddy comes. Shirley, what is it? I said, I had this terrible dream. What is it? I said, well, in the dream I was a different color, Daddy. I was red. Like some of the Indian people you used to show me pictures of.
Right.
And he said, yeah, and what happened? I said, well, this guy comes along and he talks to me and he said, child, you have to get in this line and I'm here to help you with this because there's some changes that need to be made so you'll be safe. Now, for whatever reasons in the dream, I wasn't afraid. But I looked at him and I said, what does that mean?
Right.
He said, well, we're going to get in this line, and when you get in that building, you'll see. Okay. So we get in line, and we're talking, and we get along until we get up to the door, and I can see through. And there are these two, you know what newspaper rollers are, when you watch,
Yeah.
and they run newspaper? Well, it was like that,
Sure. Okay.
except it was skin,
Okay.
and it was Caucasian skin.
Okay. The Caucasian press.
Oh, right.
White like you,
Yeah.
white like I am
Yeah.
now.
Right.
But I wasn't in the dream, I was red.
Okay.
And he said, you have to stand there. And I knew those things were going to come down around me. And I started crying, and I said, I can't.
Right.
Please, I can't. It'll crush me. Please,
Right.
don't. No. And he said, Shirley, stop. If you don't, you won't survive. It's important that you survive for the future.
Right.
You have to do this so you can hide and stay alive and with your family. So I stepped in that space and they came down, and when they went away, I was white. And I was crying so hard. What happened to me? My father, he just held me and he said, Shirley, there's a lot you won't understand about this right now, but it's really important that you understand. That because you got to do this, you will survive and you will live. And maybe you'll be the one to fulfill the prophecy. And I said, what's a prophecy, Dad? He said, it's a prediction of change in the future. And in our family, every generation, there's one who may be the carrier of that prophecy, and you might be. It turned out I was. But I didn't know that for 78 more years.
Wow.
Because they wouldn't tell you what the prophecy was. You had to live it.
Okay.
And you had to, and they would tell you stories along the way. If you had a hard time, oh, that's part of this, and blah, blah, blah. And you go, oh, okay. But I can remember when we had to hide
Yeah.
to keep them from knowing who we were because they would take the children.
Right. Well, and I mean, can you imagine, like, World War II with the Jews? I mean, it's like
Let me
that,
tell
but
you
you're in
something.
your own.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah.
In the 1400s, when Columbus came to the United States,
Sure.
to this continent, there were 12,500,000 indigenous people.
Right.
When they got through by the late 1800s, there were 300,000 left. Now you want to talk about Holocaust?
Yeah,
That's
that
it.
was it. Yeah, for sure.
We have now got about 6.5 million.
Well, I mean, that was just almost complete genocide.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That was the goal. It has been all along.
Yeah.
Now, we've recovered, and what's more, we have leaders. There were prophecies.
Mm-hmm.
And I've lived to see a lot of these prophecies survive and live. What's more, I've traveled the world. I've been in 40 different countries, and I teach what I've learned.
Mm-hmm.
And part of what I've learned and what I studied, I turned down a PhD in psychology. I mean, literally, I had it in my hand. I said no.
Right.
John Gladfelter, who's a psychologist, I don't even know if John's still alive. He's in Dallas, used to be.
Okay.
He just said, "Why, Shirley, you have it?" I said, "Because it's going to limit me, and I can't." What I did was leave Texas, went to New York, went to graduate faculty, and studied cultural and medical anthropology, cross-religious studies, and alternative medical practices, bioenergetics. I mean, there's a whole list of stuff I got into.
Right.
Because I really needed to understand, and I knew that it was more than that because of what happened to me.
So I have a question. Was there, like, during your childhood, you know, since you were hiding the fact that you were indigenous, were there, like, still, were you still a part of like a tribal system?
Oh, big time.
And yeah,
big time.
So you were doing all this like kind of covertly?
No, it was overtly.
Okay.
No, it was, and that had to do with my grandmother, my mama's mom.
Okay.
My grandfather was gored to death by a bullet when she was 13. My grandfather came from Frankfurt. My grandmother came from Switzerland. Her first language was German. My father was a mixed blood because one of the things the Cherokees did, they understood that if they stayed pure, they were going to be dead.
Right.
So I've got a lineage related to, in the Cherokee world, of Scandinavian, Celtic, English, Scottish, German,
right,
Swiss, and some other mixed in. So I grew up with a perspective, and my favorite thing was a world puzzle when I was a kid. Now, there was one area which I'll speak to in a minute, but anyway. So I had this sense of the world and myths. My parents read myths to us at night.
Okay.
So I had this awareness of expansion. And some of my relatives went to Washington, D.C. to try and offset all of this. The Trail of Tears, when it happened, they went in and they woke everybody up. And if you managed to get clothes, you had clothes. If you didn't, you didn't. And you walked. It was 24, I think if I remember correct, about 2,400 miles.
Wow. And
it took a long time. And thousands died along that path.
Oh, yeah.
And it took a while for them to get settled any place.
Sure.
There are some indigenous Cherokee who went into the mountains, and that's the Eastern Band.
Okay.
Then there's the Western Band, which settled eventually in Oklahoma and Tahlequah, and that's where the Western Band is. And I hold papers. In my purse, I have papers that state I'm an indigenous person.
Okay.
Because, and that is measured through the women. The Cherokee tribe is governed by the grandmothers.
Right.
I'm a Wolf Clan mother.
Right.
There's 6 other clans.
Sure.
And it was the women who made the decisions about what needed to happen, talked to the chiefs put it into action.
Right.
And so it's a very different world. The same thing in many ways with the Lakota people. And the thing about that is that people think it's patriarchal because they're the spokespeople, but
Sure.
it isn't. It's the women.
Ah, okay.
And unless you live in that culture, you don't know. Well, but you don't get raised in those ways and not talk about the soul.
Right.
You don't get raised in those ways and not talked about. What are you going to do with the choices you've made related to what your life is going to be, and how are you going to deal with the challenges to become more fully who you are? Because you have to go through that process before you can interface and become fully who you are. Now, we can talk a little bit about Alvon here.
Mm-hmm.
Alvon, I know a lot about his history.
Sure.
Now, here's the thing.
Okay.
The first, and
You're free.
Alvon has a solid family. And I'm a master at family systems work.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she is. You should see how she does the. Sorry for interrupting.
You can't even imagine the things I look at in that setup.
But that goes back.
His life, he had a good family, really good family.
Right.
His father got sick.
Mm-hmm.
His father was dying.
Mm-hmm.
He had a brother who was a year younger. First of all, the first thing you're going to run into from a reality base is if you got a 2-year-old and you got a 1-year-old, neither one of them are going to get their needs met, much less if you add a dying father and a mother who loves everybody, trying to meet everybody. No way in hell are they going to get a primary need met.
Right.
That leaves scars.
No.
Sure.
Now, if you read Stanislaus Grof, back in the 60s and late 50s, but especially the 60s, he wrote a book called Realms of the Human Unconscious. And what that book was about, it was back when LSD was going on the streets.
Okay.
And I was working on the streets at that
Right.
time. There were people who were really resistant to growth and change. You couldn't get to them.
Right.
Now, I know why at this point, but anyway. So what he did is design a model to find out what LSD really was.
Sure.
So what he did, he took those people and he got a team.
Mm-hmm.
And they designed a research project.
Okay.
And they gave measured doses of LSD, and they were never left alone. And they videoed everything.
Right. What was that project called? I can't remember.
I don't.
I've heard of it.
It's Realms of the Human. It's in that book.
Yeah. Okay.
The first 60 pages are boring as hell.
Right.
Because they
until
outline.
until the LSD part.
Right.
No,
Right.
no, wait.
Yeah.
They outline
kicks
all
in.
the research.
Yeah.
Then you get into the stories, and I think they're 30 or either 60, maybe 30 is all. But they got every friggin' word. And what happened with these people when they were doing the medicine
Sure.
and what that meant and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
They learned all kinds of stuff. They learned these people knew what happened during the time they were in the uterus.
Right.
They remembered when they were souls planning their lifetime.
Right.
Then they started talking about what happened in the families, what music they listened to, what kind of problems they had, what the challenges were, who died, who didn't die, whatever went on. And they got all of this down on paper, in video, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
Then people began to come alive.
And then they criminalized it.
Wait.
Right.
No,
Exactly.
no.
Yeah.
Then what they did was go talk to the families.
All right.
And the families went in shock.
Uh-huh.
They went, nobody knows that. Who talked to you?
Right.
Who in our family betrayed us? Who?
Right.
How did you know this? How could you possibly have had this kind of knowledge? What are you talking about? Nobody knew that happened. I was pregnant 4 months. And
Right.
what we know. And that really was, well, you can't say it was the beginning because you've got Qigong out of China. You've got all kinds of the different Eastern medicines that actually Bruce Lee helped bring to this planet, to the West.
Right.
Okay, so it was consistent. The families went into shock. Every one of these people engaged with their families for the first time ever,
Right.
and with other people. So what we know from that time, and it didn't take the government long to shut that stuff down.
That's
they
what I'm
did
saying.
not want
Right.
people to
Exactly.
know about this.
Right.
But it did make it into that book. Mm-hmm. It's still one of the more pivotal books that I've read. Now, I've read a lot of books.
Right.
But that one, any question that I ever had as a kid about whether there was a soul
Right.
and whether there was injuries that people carried and
Right.
it was in their body,
Yeah.
not in their mind.
Right.
Because the corpus callosum, which is the memory part of the brain, and the hippocampus does not develop until, it didn't even start until 3.
Right.
Much less into 4 and 5. Now, if you've got that, you have an automatic response with the body.
Right.
What they did, him and his brother, is just shut down.
Right.
Except, unlike a lot of people, Alvan's family was solid. Yes, there was overwhelm and that kind of thing. Now, what I know about him and addiction, that's, I think, really critically important here, is he didn't touch any drugs until he was 18. He was a good kid. He just did what the family wanted him to do. He was a good kid. He went to school. He
Right.
studied. He did all the things right. 18, he went nuts.
Yeah. Amen, brother. Dude,
Okay.
after you don't have to show up to school anymore, dude. You got high school out of the way, dude.
That's right.
That's right.
And what
Very well
happened
put. Very well put.
is he could do whatever he wanted to do, which he did.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Because he didn't have the same responsibilities, and he
Right.
had, it was the time of moving forward. However,
Sure.
it had to matter. Now, believe it or not, the life and death of his father and the life and death of Alvan and the transformation of a choice happened when his lady got pregnant with his daughter.
Okay.
Then he had to make a choice.
Right.
Yeah.
And that choice was going to be, I'm going to continue my life, or I'm going back to being what I was framed, the structure of the family
Right.
to hold steady and move forward.
Right.
And it gave him what he needed to move forward.
yeah.
Now,
Amen.
Right.
Amen.
what I'm seeing these days, because I've been doing this for more than 60 years. I mean, the family therapy people got pissed at me at one point because I don't have time to write.
Sure.
Well, I'm going to be writing soon, but
Right.
And part of it was I just never thought I had enough knowledge.
Uh-huh.
But the other part of it was I carried what I used to call the curse
Uh-huh.
of my mother. And
Okay.
there were a lot of reasons for that. My mother was the baby of 18 children.
Wow.
My mother was born when my grandmother was 54.
Right.
My mother was a twin whose brother died at birth, and she took on his energy, so she had both.
Right.
And brilliant out the wazoo and crazier than a March hare.
Right. Oh, a March hare.
Okay?
I haven't heard that one.
So, what does that mean? It means she's the only one who didn't get an education.
Right.
12 lived to adulthood, 6 boys and 6 girls. My father had 5 sisters.
Right.
He was responsible for taking care of them once Grandpa died. What happens? When you have that kind of structure, you have overwhelm.
Right.
And you don't have anybody who has primary needs met.
Sure.
And then you meet the love of your life. And here's how they met. My dad was walking down one side of the street. My mom was walking down the other side of the street, going back to work, took one look. And when she got back to work, they said, "How was lunch?" She said, "It was great. I saw the man I'm going to marry today." Really? Who is it? I have no idea. He was walking down the street.
Yeah.
The next day,
Uh-huh.
she goes on a double blind date, and there's my dad in the back seat with this woman.
Right.
And she's in the front seat with her date.
Right.
Except that those two take one look at each other. They don't shut up. The guy pulls over. Would you two like to spend
Switch.
time together? Yeah.
Right.
When she got pregnant with me, she'd had 2 miscarriages.
Uh-huh.
And she decided she was just going to give me away. She didn't want a kid.
Okay.
It's not that she didn't want a kid. She didn't want a female kid.
Right.
Not that she knew I was male or female, because back in those days they didn't.
Yeah.
But she went to a
There was no reveal party. The reveal party was when you came out.
Yeah.
no, I didn't. She went to a baby
Right.
place,
Sure.
and I was going to be given away.
Right.
And I was told all along, you're not fit to be with us.
Right.
You're out."
Right.
Now, except a month before I was born, my father tracked her down, went, saw her, took her out of there. They got married, and I was born.
Right.
But my mother could not tolerate
Right.
my father having anything to do with me, much less connected to any other female. And my mother could not tolerate me as a threat to what she finally had that was hers.
Ah, gotcha. Hey, real quick, we are going to awkwardly throw to commercial. Yeah, be sure and hit up our sponsor, Max the Axe. If you go to thispinklawyer.com, it will take you to Lone Star Injury Attorneys, and he will get you the maximum results for your injury needs. Also, Chad and Mom have a book out right now, and that book is what, Chad?
It's called Two Calls.
Okay, and then
Here's
you have a
clip.
video, right?
A phone call as a parent that your son has been hit by a car and is being life flighted.
2 hours before we got the call, Chad had called me to tell me it was the best day of his life. And then I get another call, and a stranger had found him, and they were care flighting him to a trauma unit, and that he would start praying for our family that we needed to hurry.
You know, when you wake up on the operating table and they're like, we're going to cut off both your legs. And then I wake up and then one's gone, the other one's in an external rod system. It's just not good. The real kicker is that I've had like all of these scars all over my arms, and that's all from complications resulting from drug abuse.
I never thought about giving up on him. Never. This is my son, and I know he's going to be okay. You cannot just have help for the addict. You have to seek out professional help. The whole family has been affected.
And I just want to make that very clear to anybody who's out there listening, that if I can do this thing as much as I've been through, man, there's a lot of wiggle room for people before they get to that point where they can do it too.
All right, dude. Yeah, so I'm excited about that. That was your mom's book. And y'all are actually doing speaking and stuff, right?
Yeah. We're doing speaking stuff about it. So
Speaking stuff about it. We're talking about stuff.
we do speaking stuff,
Right.
So if somebody wants to have us come out and speak about the journey that we've been through, or anything like that, they can reach us at the website. It's twocalls.org. The book is also there on the website. It's on Amazon. It's on everything. And then the emails were on the video, but for those listening, it's chad@twocalls.org or Sheila@twocalls.org. And she's got the book and some book clubs and stuff too.
That's cool, man.
A lot of
that's
tears.
cool.
Yeah. No, I love to bust on you, dude. But it's because we have that brotherly relationship, and
I don't even know you.
And I like to make. I
have no idea who you are.
It's a guy thing to make. It's a guy thing to make fun of somebody that's
fucking
having
funny, man.
emotions.
Yeah, I've never met you, so that's really rude.
And then we also have a new track coming out, which is coming out the 27th of June, and it is actually a Madonna cover.
I want to be where the sun warms the sky. When it's life on us, be a star. You've been watching them go by. Beautiful faces, no cares in this world. Where go like the boy and the boy. Love a girl. Girl.
We'll pick up. I got you. All right, and we are back. Hey, everybody. So that is streaming right now on all major platforms, much like the show is. And if you like the show, please subscribe.
Yeah.
Hit that like button, all that good stuff.
And leave a real comment instead of all the comments that we keep getting from fake accounts that are like, oh, we like show because talk.
Well, no, dude, but there are some real good comments. Real and good comments.
Yeah, but we need more real ones.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Cool.
Hit that subscribe button and like button if you want Kelly to cut
If
his
you
right
want,
leg off like me.
if you want Chad to grow his beard out like Santa
If
Claus,
you want my beard to get better, you better like and subscribe.
Well, there we go. And if you want any questions answered,
Question answered by our
yeah.
guests.
So no. Okay. So back to the show. We were talking just candidly earlier.
Right.
You know.
First of all, you need to understand something from me.
Okay.
I don't believe in right and wrong or good or bad. I believe in choice and consequence.
Okay.
Because it takes the sting of judgment out of it.
Okay.
We are schooled from the time we're born that something's wrong with us. Mm-hmm. When all we're doing is being babies.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that we're still connected to spirit.
Yeah.
Now, the question of purpose and meaning for your life actually is not as complex as you think, but people don't know how to look at it.
All right.
One of the challenges that we all face is not knowing enough about the soul and how it works.
Let's hear it.
So here, the realities that come up secondary to all of this is not only what the generations carried.
Right. Not only your lineage, your heritage,
but what happens across time and space, and that's important now for a number of reasons, which at some point maybe we'll have time to get into.
Right.
But it has to do with the increase in the energy field and what that means related to the expansion of what metaphysically is called the astral body, which goes from a really narrow frame from the past into a real wide one called 7 generations.
Okay.
Some of this is indigenous training, but we've been through it. And that's the increase in the energy field called the Age of Aquarius.
Okay.
Now, Grandma.
And that is the opening of awareness and paying attention to what's really happening around us and what's going on.
What were you going to ask, Galvan?
I was going to ask, was that part of the spider ceremonies?
Part of it is the change in the spider ceremony.
Okay.
Spider ceremony.
I've been running spider ceremonies for now 14 years.
Right.
The first 12 years had a particular frame, and it was because of that reduced astral body, there were things that work with. Now, spider, here's the deal. You have spirit. Right? You have the Pachamama, Gaia, the grandmother, whatever words you want to call her.
Okay.
Right.
Then you have Grandma Spider, who is the weaver of the web of all possibilities.
Okay.
Now, when you're being carried in the womb, you're a water baby.
Right.
You're breathing and functioning in water. When you go through the labor process and the water breaks, and you go through that process, there's all kinds of reasons to do that. Stimulates all kinds of stuff in the body. However, when you're born, there's pain. And the reason for that is you have to take your breath of air or you die. When you take your breath of air, it's fire. It burns and it hurts, and babies scream. There are all kinds of reasons why they continue to do that. We don't have time to get into that here. I'm just telling you that that's part of it. Now, as a soul, before you come in, and maybe even because time and space there don't count.
Yeah. Right.
So you can do all kinds of planning goes on, and there's all kinds of different temples and stuff where all of that comes together. When you do that, you make a plan for your life. Some of it, and it involves challenges. It involves all kinds of stuff. And the real question is the evolution of the soul. When you're going to move forward, or you're a beginner soul coming in, and there's certain things that you need. You need parents who are going to tell you what to do, how to do it, when to do it. But as you go along and over a long period of time, whatever that means, you grow and you evolve into being a so-called advanced soul or an angel. And you can call that we all have a guardian angel. We all know that.
Right.
But we also have archangels. We have angels who do all kinds of things.
Right.
And we have challenges.
Yeah. Well, no, and I think I understand the whole.
Wait.
Go ahead.
Get to your question.
Sure.
I'll get there.
Okay.
What happens in there are different age structures to this. There's pregnancy. That's 9 months. Then there's 0 to 7, 8 to 14, 14 to 21. Then you have 25, and then you have 28. That's the first Saturn return.
Okay.
There are all kinds of things that have to be accomplished during those times.
Okay.
And that structure is part of what you develop and have the experiences that you set up ahead of time, and the family and the people around you have agreed to, that set this in motion.
Right.
Then you go through those challenges. Mostly you go through all kind of crap. We all know that. I mean, I don't know anybody wants to be an adolescent again.
Right.
I mean,
that was an awkward time.
No kidding. It is for everybody.
Yeah.
Because they're beginning to define themselves. And the thing about that is they think they know all the answers. They find out when they're about 23, they don't. But that's a different matter.
Right.
Okay, so if you have that kind of a structure and you're talking about what is the purpose of your life, it's how you're going to handle the challenges that you set up for yourself, that the family and everybody around you is part of.
Right.
You either do a good job or you don't.
Right.
If there is,
it is pretty simple, like when you phrase it like that. I mean, if it's the whole purpose of life is how you handle the challenges of life.
That's correct.
That's pretty. I like that.
In addition to that, it's how you handle what happens around you, because you're hypersensitive to the energy field around you through your own body and through the growth and development. If the pain is too great, you have a foundation and a structure for addiction.
Right.
We all have some kind of addiction. Mine was abuse.
Okay.
My entire family was alcoholic and also some drugs.
Sure.
Everybody except me. But I had an addiction called abuse. And it took me most of my life to master it.
Right.
So the real issue and the purpose and the meaning, what is it? Now, I've had readers at times who come and read for me, tell me whatever.
Right.
I had one that came and said, "Oh, you're part of the vanguard." And I said, "What the hell does that mean? You came in early to learn some things because you're going to be carrying a really important lesson in the future, because you're going to know what to do if you keep on the path you're on." And what that means is all the ways that I learned to undermine, because half the time I didn't know whether I was alive or dead.
Right.
So I would do things. I would get hurt. I would be in an auto accident.
Right.
I would fall. I would do all kinds of things. And initially, if there was blood or if there was the pain, I knew I was alive.
Well, you know, and that's a common thing they do now is cutting.
That's
a lot of girls
pickers
do that. Yeah.
And there's cutters.
Yeah.
Now the reason for that is if you feel pain and you're in a numb place.
Yeah.
You know you're alive. And
I've also heard from somebody that suffered from that. Also, that's how they feel in control.
Well, it's more than that.
Well, right.
It's not just so much that you're in control. It's that you find out you're alive.
Yeah.
Now, that instant that you know that is joy.
Right.
The pain is not the goal.
Right.
It's to know. And if it's blood, and I was a picker.
Yeah.
I mean, I still am. I have to be careful about that.
Right.
But there was always a way to find out that I was still alive. When you have enough abuse that you do that, then gradually all kinds of things. And by the time I was in my early 20s, I could convince myself that I was responsible for anything negative.
Right.
Which
Well,
wasn't.
it sounds like you were exposed to that and you were told that. So what the hell else are you going to believe?
Well, it's
but
more, it's,
but
yeah,
what
and I
you've
was
been
the wrong
fed.
sex.
Right. Yeah.
I was the wrong sex. Now,
Sure.
what happens when something takes place? So for all of us, like maybe Chad's accident,
Right.
there's a waking up that takes place with that.
You're right.
And then you have to look at what the hell is my life about?
Right.
What am I going to do with it? Well, I knew that I was a good person. I was very conscious of that.
Okay.
I knew I was not a shithead. Pardon my language.
No. Yeah.
Let it
I was
fly.
not.
It's okay.
I was not a person who would destroy life. Because I loved it. I loved flowers. I loved the animals.
Right.
And I was isolated. And I was abused. And I was this. And I was that.
Right.
Whoopee-doo. So sad.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
bullshit.
Hell yeah.
Right.
It's not even about that. It's about what happens, and at what point do you say, what? Then what do you do? Your life falls apart, and you got to get help.
Right.
Now,
Well, I think getting, and that's an important fact that you pointed out, is getting help. And a lot of people that are in addiction really don't deal with the PTSD part of what they've experienced, like you, like yourself, and they haven't done that. And that's why I always am a big proponent of like therapy and
well, here's the deal. As within, so without. As above,
right,
so below.
Sure.
Now, if you have an internal world that's destructive, you're going to create that.
Yep.
Because you don't know how to do it any different until something happens that puts you in a different place. And Bob Glenn, for me, was that.
Okay.
And because of something that happened with my ex.
Now, who is Bob Glenn?
He was a psychiatrist for Southwestern Medical School, number 2. Bob Glenn came from London, from England. He went to school at Eton. He came to the States. He went to Arizona. And while he was there, the Hopi and the Navajo got a hold of him, and he spent time in the desert. So he had a base. My ex went through some stuff. Bob Glenn was who the medical school connected him to, because my ex-husband was a doctor who graduated number 4 out of 350 students. He wasn't stupid.
Right.
And what's more, he had a hell of a lot to do with the development of all things cardiology.
Right.
But he was also a chemical engineer. I worked for Humble Oil before he went to Korea. So I had a name and I had a phone number. George stopped his residency. We went out to West Texas for 5 years. While I was out there, I got pregnant with my youngest son. And George decided that I was carrying somebody else's kid.
Okay.
Except I wasn't.
Right.
Now, if you're raised to believe that you're a horrible being and responsible for the destruction of everything around you, that's fine.
Right.
Unless you have to confront the lie. Back in those days, they didn't have insemination that much.
Sure.
They had to have a hell of a lot of money. We did not.
Right.
So no matter what I did with that, I couldn't twist it. When that happened, my whole world fell apart, but I had a phone number. And the things that took place during that time, finally I called his office, and when he called me back finally, I told him what was going on. He said, wait a minute. You think those things were said to you, or they were?
Right.
I said, who the hell can make up that kind of shit? Are you out of your
Right.
mind? Yes.
Right.
Here's what you do. He took charge.
Uh-huh.
And that began my journey of healing.
Right.
So it takes a crisis
Mm-hmm.
to make that shift into what this was about that laid the foundation and the structure under which you have to then master to become more fully who you are. And that's a lifetime's work,
Yeah.
Right.
depending on the determination of the person and the commitment that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I was 8 years old, my grandmother was dying, my mom's mom.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody came together. We were in her room. Now, you can have all these ideas about angels, and you can hear people talking about it, and you got to do this, and you know, and you hear, I'm looking over there, and I'm saying blah blah blah, and you say whatever. Like I saw this guy, you know, in the dream, and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But when you're in your grandmother's bedroom with the whole family, and she's dying, and the whole room lights up from her, and you're watching this,
Right.
and the entire room, as she looks around, everybody gets light all around them. And I'm an 8-year-old standing at the end of the bed, and I'm watching, and I'm going, Mama, she says, shh.
Right.
Grandma was glowing, and I don't mean a little bit here.
Right.
Glowing.
Yeah.
Everybody had their heads down, was praying, all kinds of stuff.
Right.
And then
now
she-
everyone could see this. This was
Everybody
visible.
in
Yeah.
the room, we
Right.
all saw it.
Right.
And then she says, okay,
Hey.
and the light goes away.
Right. That was a good timing on the
That
lightning.
was great timing on that thunder right there. That was good.
But when you're 8 years old,
Yeah.
that's when you begin to learn about what to do with your body. And you've got more on board.
Mm-hmm.
That shifts, you know, you track that back to some of the other mystical stuff that I'd had happen in my life. But to that first dream and that, and
Yeah.
it goes on and on and on.
Right. Well, I mean, I could talk to
So
you
wait,
literally
wait,
forever.
Wait,
yeah.
wait. I'm going to get to your question.
Okay. Okay.
Until you have that moment of crisis and you do something about it and begin to explore, you begin then to take responsibility for what the hell happened and what you need to do with it to become more fully who you are. And as you go along that path, you discover purpose and meaning.
100%. I agree
Then
with that.
what you have to decide is, are you going to do what somebody else says you should do or what your heart says? So
Right.
yesterday, I talked to a guy, and he did whatever his dad did. He had tests that said, you're a healer, you can do it in any of these areas, my God. He didn't go that path. And yesterday he was saying, and that was what my path was. And I'm miserable doing what I'm doing. And that's what happens when someone else controls what you do, and you do not have the ability to say what you want and what you need to do, because you don't have a good enough base on what your needs are and unconditional love and support, and you move forward and you're having to accommodate everybody else and not you don't get to want.
Yeah.
You get betrayed and you feel tricked, but you cannot move forward to become more fully who you are unless you heal some of that and you can begin to challenge and reach for what it is you want.
Right.
There are 4 states you have to be able to work with, and they're all connected in varying ways. One is structure.
Okay.
When you're born, you come into confusion.
Yeah.
The way out of confusion is structure.
Okay.
Also, if you start to have abuse and stuff, you end up in chaos, and that's all in the same realm.
Right.
Then you have to go through springtime, which is all about incorporation and purification. And that is all about what it is to be loved, what it is to trust, safety, security, nurturing, belief, belonging, in that sense.
Right.
Being
Well, I think
positive.
I think that's an important part to point out. Is you said belonging, and I don't mean this in an indigenous way, but I'm
talking about in general.
Yeah, no, and I'm talking about in general as well. Is that it's important in recovery to find your tribe and to be a part of that because of the people, of the like people,
your family of origin,
right?
Because of who you are. And when you start taking on and moving into what you want, if it's not supported, you don't have that. You have no ability to nurture and care for yourself.
Sure.
You don't.
Right.
If you don't do that, you can't go through the fall gateway, which is a negative gateway, an ordeal, where it is a ritual of initiation, a ritual of separation, and a ritual of identity.
Right.
And you go through that process figuring out what you need to do and what is your path.
Right.
Then you go through dark night of the soul, where you wonder how the hell you got there, where you're going to go, where you get out of it.
Right.
And you go through what's known as a ritual of
and or like the winter, as you were doing the seasons.
I'm getting to there. That's what we're talking about. December 21st.
Yeah.
That is a ritual
winter
of transformation.
solstice, right?
That is a birth, death, and rebirth ritual.
Right.
You go from water to nothing to air. When you do that, you begin the process of what that cycle is, and it's spherical. It is not linear, even though it is. Then there are 4 other gateways in between. Those are feminine gateways because the equinoxes and the solstices are masculine gateways.
Okay.
They mean you make a movement forward or not, depending on a number of factors.
Right.
But a feminine gateway requires time. So we have Groundhog Day. That's called Imbolc.
Okay.
And that's a Wiccan name, but it means that it's when the earth begins to wake up for spring to come and new life to come. Then you get into that's winter. And then you get into spring, you're going to get into water.
Right.
That's a water gateway. The December gateway is earth. Then it's water. That then is Beltane and May Day. And that's when you sow the seeds for new life. And in the ancient ways, it was a free day, a free sex and stuff. And the babies who got pregnant during that day were always sacred.
Right.
Okay? So you go through that. Then you go to the summer, the highest and best that we are. The call to adventure. You begin to start reaching for what you want, whatever that means. Either that's supported or it's not. If it's not, you don't have a right to have for you. So you are busy taking care of everybody else except yourself.
Right.
To go across to become the beginning of a person, you have to go through that ordeal of the September gateway. If you can't do that because you did not have the underlying needs met that you needed to have and the wanting and having that exchange, then there's always this sense that you can't measure up no matter what you do.
Sure.
So you've got these 4 masculine, 4 feminine gates, and we go through them and it spirals around. And as we go through life, each of those spirals takes us into another step, into the mastery of what all of that is. The more we do that and do our own personal work, because by this time, as adults, we're our own healer. People like me are nothing more than a guide who accompanies someone, encourages them, challenges them, does all that. The responsibility that I have for healing is to hear and being there and supporting others in their journey because I made the journey. And that's what all of that mastery that was set up in the very beginning and as a soul is all about.
Right.
And out of that, we become more fully who we are. Now, the problem that comes out of that is most people won't stay in therapy long enough.
Yeah.
And what's more, Many therapists have no idea what I just got through talking to you about.
Right. That's true.
And because of that,
Yeah.
they can't do it.
Right.
So now we have advanced souls coming on the planet because we've reached this time of the age of Aquarius. Not only have we done that, we've got enough healed people on board. Well, healing people, not healed,
Right.
who are all continuing to work on this. What's more, there are more and more people learning metaphysics. There are more and more people looking at all kinds of opportunities.
Right. Well, and the vibration of the planet, right?
And the other thing is, there's more honesty out there. Everybody is a friggin' addict.
Right.
What is the addiction? Part of mine was abuse. That's
Right.
what I knew.
Yeah.
Part of it is curiosity.
Sure.
Now, let me tell you something. There's no worse addiction than curiosity.
Right. Well,
No, I'm
Yeah.
not kidding.
no, I'm thinking about it. Yeah. I mean,
Because
well,
the minute that you answer a question, there's another one.
Yeah.
You are never.
Never satisfied.
that's true. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
You can't stop. Not only that, there is no boredom
Yeah.
because curiosity is the cure to boredom.
Yeah.
There's no cure for curiosity.
All right.
So you're always driven forward.
Yeah.
If you follow the pattern of your life, and if you stay connected enough and are a seeker,
I'm a seeker.
then
For
you
sure.
find the people who you will be drawn to, and they will be drawn to you for wherever you are.
Yeah.
If they don't continue to grow, they'll be in your life a while. Then you move forward and you get another seeker,
Right.
or people.
Sure.
And those groups will shift across time and space because you don't stop. The problem is most people stop.
Yeah, so a couple things you said that really made they really are
Resonated
so
with
spot
you.
on, yeah. So you mentioned like the crisis, and it has to. I don't know if you can dictate if you can help somebody else see the crisis before they're ready to see it, but.
Yeah,
a
you
lot
can
of people.
if
A
you
lot of
know
people
how.
call that rock bottom, and you can tailor words to them, right? You can speak to them and help
If
them
you
kind
know
of
how.
understand. Yeah, but it's not the easiest thing in the world because a bunch of people tried to do that for me whenever the wreck happened and all that stuff. But I wasn't ready
No.
until I was finally ready to understand.
That's correct.
And it absolutely was like a changing moment where it's like nut up or shut up type thing, and but then you also spoke about I couldn't, the therapy thing didn't start for me. I tried it so many times, but I was always numb when I would
Yeah.
go into therapy, so obviously it's not going to fucking work. People don't understand that. They're like, oh well, therapy didn't work for me. Well, yeah, because you were smoking pot and fucking drinking the whole time when you were showing up to talk to your therapist.
Yeah.
But 22 months for me of being away from drugs and alcohol is when a counselor suggested we talk about the car wreck and the trauma from it. And it was like a fucking light bulb turned on.
Right.
And we were able to get through it and talk about that stuff. And it was one of the most healing things I've ever been through is understanding. And then it absolutely, the crisis and then the understanding of the crisis absolutely brought forth like a new life in my life and a new purpose and a new everything. So I mean, that's just spot on everything we just went through that you were just talking about. And I just, I had to talk about that real quick because I was like, holy shit.
Now, Bob Glenn became one of my master's level teachers, as well as my therapist, as well as an encourager, as well as all kinds of things. One of the things that he would talk to us about, as long as you're working with people in any frame, you have a requirement spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, and on every other way possible to do your work.
Right.
Yeah.
It is never done until you don't take your last breath.
That's the other thing I was going to say. I talk to people all the time about this because, as addicts or as whatever, Like it's always like you're always chasing something, right? You're always chasing this. I'm chasing this.
You're chasing the high,
awakening.
yeah.
I'm chasing this this job, this woman, this whatever. Well, if you're in the act, if you're so used to chasing things, right, and you're chasing this whole recovery deal or whatever, there's a big difference between chasing and seeking, right? Chasing, there's an end goal. There's an end goal. And when I hit that end goal, knowing me and knowing everything I've done in my life, it's like, cool, on to the next. And it's never enough. Nothing will ever be enough. But like the difference between chasing and seeking is seeking, there is no end game. It is just to broaden, right? That's what the implication in my mind would be. It would be to broaden myself in whatever area I'm seeking, as opposed to let me get to set point B. And then, okay, then once I get there, because I've been chasing set point B for so long, it's like, oh shit, what do I do now?
Yeah, well, here's the deal. I used to turn around and look at people and I go, well, when you get through chasing yourself, when do you think you're going to turn around and find you?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Now, what's your goal? I used to talk about this as a 100-room house, or like those Venetian blinds there.
Mm-hmm.
We got a lot of injuries. If you see the space in between those blinds as a frequency, you're going to start at the bottom.
Right.
You'll master that frequency, then you go to the next, and then you go to the next, and then you go to the next, and the next, and whatever that is.
Sure.
And you have to have a support structure.
Right.
That's where you begin to build it in.
Right.
That's where that crisis becomes really essential. And if you have someone who can support you to walk through it,
Right.
Yeah.
with the spiritual principles underneath it, believe me, you'll grow. And when you do that, you continue to grow, or you only go so far. The problem with most psychological mental health training is you go through what's known as a T group.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Like, are you talking little T, big T?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's the deal.
Yeah.
They bring all the students together, and you have this group dealing with your stuff.
Right.
Maybe you deal with 2 or 3 major topics over the time. But when they get out of school, maybe they're doing supervision, maybe not. But that's it. It's not enough.
Right.
So basically, if you see a therapist and the therapist got 3 of those spaces mastered, you're going to do fine with them. The minute you get into something else, they can't.
Right.
So you have to find somebody who can, or you're dumb like me and just couldn't stop, and you keep going and you keep going and keep going until suddenly one day you realize, wait a minute, I got to find a peer group,
Right.
Yeah.
which is out there.
Sure.
But the other part of it is,
Well, in recovery, that's why Alcoholics Anonymous is such a big success, is because it's an insta-peer group right there.
that's right.
And it's
Yeah.
built on
now,
spiritual
here's the
principles.
deal. If you
Yeah.
don't have a group, you'll lose.
Yeah.
It's like that mice and
Your
heroin.
tribe.
No.
Yeah.
That's right. Now, here's the deal. It's not about your nationality or whatever. It's about who you are.
Sure.
And it's about wanting to be whole.
Yeah.
And it's about being willing to face whatever you have to, no matter what.
Yeah.
And forgiving yourself and others. It's about coming to a place of making a choice. Like one of the things my father taught me.
By the way, that's a big one, forgiving.
Yes, yes.
I'm not done.
Yeah.
Right.
Daddy would tell me, you break your word, it's worth some murder. How can that be, Daddy? How can it be worse than murder? Because they die. I said, exactly. But if you break your word to someone, you destroy belief, you destroy safety, you destroy trust, you destroy belief, you destroy connection between people and you.
Right.
You are totally out there. You are not nurtured. You completely believe and feel like you're abandoned, and you are. And you are accountable because they have to live with that, and you caused it because you broke your word.
Right.
Therefore, it's worse than murder, and you clean it up.
Yep.
And I'm not kidding. We were taught that.
Right.
And no matter what, I mean, I break my word, I go clean it up in a hurry. Because I don't want no part of that shit.
Yeah.
Sure.
However, if you don't have that kind of base, about the time you get over to this ritual of initiation that I'm talking about, which is a fire ritual and a negative gateway, because you're pushing to become yourself, and people want to keep you controlled by keeping you in their pattern, you're in trouble if you're not willing to take it on. And the challenges that come with it that enable you to step forward. Now we're back to your question. What do you do with all of those injuries? You heal them.
Right.
And you become more fully who you are, and you become a leader in whatever field it is. Now, it's easy to get caught in a lot of disciplines. It's real easy. First of all, I mean, I've worked a ton with addicts.
Right.
I mean, I used to work on the street back in the 60s when it wasn't done.
Right. When there was,
I mean, I can
before
remember.
addiction was a thing.
Let me tell you something. For 3 years, I didn't lock my house. I cooked every day. Those kids on the streets that I worked with would go to my house. I never went home to a dirty kitchen, and I never went home to a full pot. But there was always stew or beans and rice or whatever, soup, whatever, on my stove. They had, and what's more, I recently found out, because one of those kids is still alive. He said, we always had a watcher on your house. Nobody was going to go in that house. We protected it.
Right.
I didn't know they did that, but I was known as the one person that would feed the poor, the kids on the street.
Right.
I met with them in the park. I got the cops to stay away. My boss at the mental health center supported what I was doing.
Right.
I was doing really radical stuff back in those days. But I had the base, and in many ways, with all the trouble that Mama and went on with Mom and Dad and all that stuff, they were good people.
Right.
And they were fucked up people.
Yeah.
And so was everybody else.
Yeah.
So
welcome.
But when and recently I went to this place in Mexico. They invited me to come. I went. I got curious. I was down there for almost 2 years.
Right.
And I learned about the more current drug stuff.
Right.
And the plant medicines. But I've been doing plant medicines for 50 years.
Well, I mean, I would love to talk more, and we will have to do that. We'll have to have you back on, but it's been fascinating, and I thank you for putting some things into perspective for us. I appreciate it.
There's another perspective.
Okay.
That I think is important right now.
Okay.
I have worked with all the shit that people call themselves, who are drug addicts.
Right.
They're this, they're a loser, they're this, they're that. And I go, are you out of your mind? You saved your life. They go, what are you talking about? I nearly killed myself. I said, you may have.
Right.
But as an infant, and as a young child, you couldn't deal with the pain that was going on. Those drugs saved you. Now, you're questioning, you're growing, you're moving forward, and you're now ready to take all of those experiences, embrace them, grow from them, heal yourself, and then pass it on to the others around you. Because
right.
you'll know how.
That's where the whole thing comes in.
The paying it forward.
Yeah, well, it's like
right.
All of those experiences that I let just what I thought ruined my life, right, were just setting me up for the future that I couldn't see at the time.
No.
To be able to try and save somebody else some time, at least, and a little bit of heartache if I can.
Right.
To pass on what you've learned and support them so that they're not alone.
Yep.
We can heal ourselves and become who we are if we're willing to face ourselves.
Right. I like to say that I've gotten to where I arrived through my own stupidity.
And the other statement, and it's a working title for a book for me.
Okay.
How do you love the stranger?
Ah, okay.
Now, who's the stranger?
Humanity.
Yourself.
Yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
There we go.
You have to love you before you can love anybody else.
Yep.
Ah.
And if you're not loved and you go through a lot of stuff that
Right.
you have to master, you must come to that.
Right.
Then you can transform life.
Well, like I said,
That's it.
Yeah, all the wisdom you've imparted, I'm gonna have to watch this back so I can grab it all. But Alvon, dude, brother,
It's so
what's
good to
up,
see you, man.
dude? Yeah, great to see you.
We got the Camp Abundance stuff coming up here in California in the Redwoods.
Yeah.
I'm real excited about. Grandma Shirley is heading out.
Yeah,
the
she's
elders.
speaking at that.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
And then
high tech AI conference.
I'm trying
business.
to think because this will air in a few weeks, so it won't be. That event might have already happened by the time
And we
this
got the
airs.
Blue Star.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got
Blue Star-
Sundance at Blue
Sundance,
Star.
Cool.
which is here in
I've
Texas
got Vision
too.
Quest
Love it.
coming up.
Yep. Vision
Okay.
Quest.
I've got stuff I'll be doing. in
Well, and
Sweden.
I want to go. Can I take you out to eat with Alvon sometime?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I want to come hang and get deep.
Definitely.
And get deep when we have some time.
Definitely.
But thanks again for coming on. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, and
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
And I hope it's been helpful.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's been very insightful and emotional. as
Can
well.
we put the contact if you want to contact
Yeah,
Grandma
I'll-
Shirley?
absolutely.
I will put that in. I'll
That'd
put
be
that.
awesome, bro.
Just text that to me.
Okay.
And I'll put it in the in the YouTube nets.
Guys, it's been fun.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you, man.
And hey, it's all because we saw each other at a Madonna concert.
At a Madonna concert. Oh my gosh. Yes,
All
that
right,
is
hey
true.
Chad, appreciate you figuring
Chad,
all
thank
this
you.
good stuff out, dude.
Yeah, man.
Like it's been fun being in the Oprah suite.
Lot of information.
Be sure like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and remember, kids, there is no magic pill for sobriety because if there was, we would all take two.
Activate.